Hi, I'm Madara.
Hi, I'm Athula Seneviratne.
I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Waterloo studying Public Health and Gerontology.
I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Moratuwa, a part-time PhD candidate, and I'm studying Computer Science and Engineering.
Today, Mr. Seneviratne is here to share their knowledge and experience in doing their PhD with us. First, we will talk a little bit about their personal journey in doing their PhD, and then we'll talk a little bit about things that will help you pursue a similar path or to simply understand what goes on in the research world. Welcome, Mr. Seneviratne. Are you ready to start?
Welcome. Yes, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so let's start with your thesis topic. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now.
Okay. Actually, so my thesis topic is actually on a framework for learner integrity for online assessments.
Learning integrity.
So it's basically dealing with learner integrity because for now, with the widespread use of e-learning and online assessments, there's a big challenge in the academic world about the academic dishonesty. I mean, people they impersonate and they do various other things during online tests. So various ways of dealing with this and preventing impersonation and ensuring that genuine candidates will have their genuine merit assessed. So that is basically the thesis is about.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. Before I go into details about how you got to doing a PhD, let's talk a little bit about your thesis. I'm really interested now.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about how you're going about addressing this issue of lack of integrity in online learning.
Yeah. Okay. So actually now during online examination, they have discovered that there are different types of fraudulent practices. Now, one very fundamental practice is where you simply impersonate. You get someone else to do the test for you. Then in addition to that, you can refer other material. You can refer online or you can refer even something on another device. So all these things, now the most one way of tackling this is to have remote proctoring. I mean, you can have a camera and you can have, but all these things, it requires cooperation from the candidate's end. So now my approach is to find a way to not to depend on the candidate's facilities or his devices or anything, and to capture what is called is biometrics. So the keystroke dynamics. When you type on the keyboard, the keystroke dynamics are unique to a person. Now, that's nothing new. I mean, it's a proven field. It's used for authentication in online systems a lot, but it has not been used for this particular aspect. The difference is now in a normal online scenario, generally the person, you mean the customer or whoever is logging in, the user is on the side of the institution. I mean, you don't want to be impersonated. You will cooperate with the institution to ensure that you will not be impersonated.
Yeah.
But here it's opposite. I mean, you willingly share your credentials with somebody else.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. So keystroke dynamics in itself is nothing new. I mean, it's a proven field. A lot of research has been done, but using it for this particular what I call to ensure learn integrity is something quite novel, and so I'm working on. That's basically what I'm working on.
Wow, that's actually really innovative. I think that would come in handy in many areas. I mean, I am aware I'm a TA as well, a teaching assistant, and there's a lot of talk about lack of integrity within students during this pandemic, especially. And there's kind of no way to tell. So most quizzes have been open book, most tests have been open book because it's really hard to address that issue. When people hear that someone is doing a PhD, they always wonder, how did you get to this point? Tell us a little bit about your background in the field that you're doing your research in. Did you have a master's that is related to this PhD, or is your work experience related to this, or is it completely novel? Tell us a little bit of how you got there to this PhD.
Yeah, so actually, my first degree and both my masters were not quite in computer science and engineering. It was a related field. I am basically a electronics and telecommunication engineering, telecommunication engineer. So during my undergraduate days, there was a lot of overlap between computer science and electronics. Right? In fact, there was no separate field as such. But generally, both fields are matured. So actually, although I was working on as an electronics engineer, later on, in my work experience, I migrated to running an institution, a training institution, and where we were involved in introducing technology-assisted learning, so e-learning and that sort of thing. So that is what interested me in this area. So to be very frank, my studies before the PhD are not quite on computer science and engineering, but it is related. So I was always comfortable with computer science and engineering. So it was basically passion. So I've always wanted to be a researcher, and I wanted to complete a doctorate someday. So various circumstances prevented me from doing it. So quite late, one would say, in my age. But anyway, I did not give up. And here I am.
It's never too late to do anything, I think. So
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're doing your PhD in Sri Lanka, which, people have questions about that, because most people who want to do a PhD in Sri Lanka, they go abroad. So your experience is quite unique and really valuable to people who want to do a PhD in Sri Lanka. So if you could please talk a little bit about how it was like to get started with the process of applying to a PhD and applying to the PhD. So you said your undergrad and master's were not quite related to what you're doing. Was that a barrier? What were the requirements that in Sri Lanka to get into your program?
Well, basically, the university that I chose, that is the same university which I did my first degree and my master's as well. So I was in, and I also served as a visiting lecturer in the same. So I was in and out of the university, and there was, of course, it was a different department, but I was very familiar with the university. So when they advertised for PhD candidates, basically what they wanted was, you first of all, you have to give a very brief research proposal, not the formal research proposal. You have to identify a topic and to give a basic outline of a proposal, and also you have to link up with a supervisor. So you have to find the supervisor, and through the supervisor you have to submit your basic application along with your outline, and then that will be assessed, and thereafter you will be invited to register. So depending on your experience, I think in my case, my work experience was also counted. So initially, I thought that I may have to initially join as an MPhil and later on upgrade myself to PhD, but apparently that was not required. So they directly let me start on my PhD.
Right. So probably having the master's and also experience as a visiting lecturer added to your application as well. It looks like
and a class, and an honors degree in the first level. The first degree being having a honors also helped.
Yeah, these things, the classes or levels and the honors that you've gotten, they seem to be quite important in Sri Lanka, aren't they?
Yes, it is. It is,
yeah. It seems like the initial process of getting started is quite similar to what goes on here. So first you link up with the supervisor. It's your responsibility to do that, and then you write a thesis proposal. Not an actual proposal, but like a very brief proposal of what you want to do and how you would do it. That was kind of the same for me as well. What is required in the application? So for example, is there a special exam that you have to do, or do you have to have publications, or do you need reference letters?
You need reference letters. You have to have references who would vouch for your capability to engage in research and how devoted you are for an academic program. So reference letters are there. Publications are not required, but I mean, whatever that, if you have done any publications for your master's or anything, that will be helpful. So you can list them, but it is not a prerequisite. In my case, it was not listed as a prerequisite as such.
Okay, got it. Could you talk a little bit about the funding situation over there? How are PhD programs funded? Do you get paid? Is your tuition covered? Do you have to pay out of your pocket? I have no idea what goes on in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, different models are there, but in my case, because I am a part-time researcher, I had to fund my program totally. So I'm funding it. And but for full-time students, there are various arrangements where you can work as a research assistant in the university. You can contribute to the university in other ways, and then so that will cover part of your tuition fees and things like that. So those privileges are not available to part-time students. So I had to fund it. That's basically how it happens.
Got it. And you said, so either work as a research assistant or contribute to the university in different ways. What do you mean by contribute to the university in different ways? Is it by like lecturing or?
Exactly. So you could contribute as a lecturer in the first degree level programs, or you can be a demonstrator, and or you can assist in the research of senior academics. So all of those are taken as contributions to the university.
Great, amazing. I think that's a really good opportunity that PhD students can lecture while they're doing their program. Great. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the structure of your program. So for example, for me, I would have to take courses first, then do an exam and pass the exam and do a proposal. The exam is to test your readiness to go on to the thesis level. Then you write your thesis proposal, present it, defend it, then you do your research, write it, and then defend the thesis. So what is the process of doing the PhD in your university in Sri Lanka?
Yeah. Some programs require that you should earn some credits during the first year before you submit your research proposal. But in my case, it was not required. So I was directly allowed to go proceed with my research proposal, and then there was a defense for that. But during that year, there were some optional workshops, mainly focused on how to write research proposal, how to engage in research, to to orient yourself more towards how to conduct research, to make a researcher. So that type of, there were optional workshops we had to attend. So I was not required, particularly called upon to do any courses and earn credits like that. So maybe I was fortunate, but there are other programs where that is required. Even in the same university, I'm aware, there are certain programs where PhD students during the first academic year, they have to earn some credits by way of following some courses and doing some exams, and then only they are permitted to proceed with their research proposal. So then once it's more or less the standard view, once your research proposal is accepted, you can proceed with then you have to give a work plan, how the timelines and everything. And then there are periodic reviews, how you progress. And you have to have at least 8 reviews before you finally present your final thesis.
Okay, so 8 reviews for part-time degree, because the length of the degree would depend, right? So if it's a 4-year, is it still 8 reviews?
I'm quite not sure about that. Yeah, could be, yes, because the duration is longer. For part-time degrees, duration is longer. So that is actually there's a minimum gap between 2 reviews. You cannot have it earlier than that.
Okay.
So there's a minimum gap there after doing 1 review, irrespective of how much you have progressed. The next review will be taken only after a minimum time period. So like that, so you can go on any amount of reviews you can have, and the minimum is you should have 8.
Okay,
in
got
my
it.
program, yes.
And I was just curious, how long is the part-time PhD program that you're doing? How many hours do you have?
Yeah, years, you mean? Yeah, we had to go for 5 years. We are given 5 years.
Okay, great. Yeah, I said hours.
Yeah.
Like we can finish a PhD in 2 hours.
Okay.
All right, cool. So we've talked a little bit about what your PhD is on and how the process of applying and doing the PhD in Sri Lanka is like, at least at the University of Moratuwa. Let's talk a little bit about some challenges that you faced since the day you started thinking about doing the PhD and to this day. Some personal challenges first.
Okay. So actually, I decided to enroll for a PhD about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I work as a head of a division in a government organization. So it's very busy with my work. So finding time to engage on this was quite a challenge. So I spent a lot of, I would say, wasted a lot of years trying to initially focus myself and finally to get on with it. So that was the main issue. I mean, getting myself ready to fast. But finally, somehow, once I enrolled, still the challenge was remaining. So I'm still finding it quite a challenge to balance my work and also because in Sri Lanka, mainly when you are in charge of projects, implementing projects in your work, there are many procurement and things when those are involved. They seldom go along a timeline and there are a lot of hiccups which require you to do a lot of firefighting sometimes. So that really distracts me sometimes from my program. So I'm already on an extension now. I could not complete my research within the stipulated period. So I have, university has given me, you can extend. So I'm given my extension. So, which is, I mean, I would have liked it if it was not necessary, but anyway, so that is the major challenge that I have is while working and also, I mean, working in a quite strenuous and a high profile job. Doing a PhD is actually, it's simply the passion that is keeping me on. I know many other people, they just give up.
Yeah, I understand that because even doing something else, not such a demanding job, but something else in life, a hobby or whatever, and trying to balance it itself is difficult. But what is more important is that you are going through with your passion, despite the hectic schedule that you have.
Yes.
That's amazing, Mr. Seneviratne. That's what I think everyone should try if they can. Not to pressure themselves too much. That's not what I'm saying. But if you can, it's you'll feel amazing at the end of it.
Yeah. Yes.
So, in addition to personal challenges, what are some country-specific challenges that you've come across? So this is more of a general question. So I've heard a bit about the specific difficulties that students face in doing a PhD in Sri Lanka. Are you aware of any that is quite common to Sri Lanka that you think the country should focus on solving so PhD students, future and current PhD students, would have a much easier time pursuing grad studies and conducting research, not just students, but everyone in the field of research? What needs to be done in Sri Lanka so we get to a better place when it comes to research?
Yeah, frankly, I don't have the same insight that internal students have, because as an external student, my engagement and the contact time with my superiors, etc., is much more limited. But in general, I think our universities, the research component compared to the academic delivery must improve a lot. So, I mean, in Sri Lanka, it is still, I know many people, they have, most of our academics, they have earned their PhD abroad. And I'm sure any of them would vouch for it that they don't have the same facilities they have here. So especially when you are doing experimenting, when you want to improvise and recreate certain scenarios, resources would obviously be a challenge. So I think our universities have a long way to go. in strengthening their research capabilities compared to the academic delivery. I mean, the program taught courses, they happen quite well. I know, I mean, we have good rankings, but our university rankings overall in Sri Lanka could improve a lot if they focus more on strengthening their research arm as well. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I do. I do have a little bit more questions about that. Why is it so difficult to improve research in Sri Lanka? I mean, is it a challenge with data collection, data within Sri Lanka, or is it a lack of resources in terms of conducting physical experiments? What about secondary data analysis? If we have data, we can still do that kind of secondary analysis, or PhD students could do that. Why is Sri Lanka lagging behind? It's not something that's magic. We can definitely do it in the country. Why do you think that is? And what should decision makers be doing to improve this?
Yeah, as you very correctly identified, infrastructure, especially laboratory facilities, those are not quite up to the standard because most of the laboratories and the experimental facilities are still geared towards the first degree courses, and where it's more oriented towards group learning. But when it comes to a master's and when it comes to a PhD, where you have to allocate resources to individuals, and also for them to have their own timeline and their programs, not fixed timetables. I mean, for them to just walk in when it's convenient for them. So universities are finding it quite a challenge to cater to those. So basically it's infrastructure, because the equipment are expensive, especially in things like electronics and computer science. So those issues are there. Then things like data gathering, and I don't think there's to my knowledge, it's a major issue. It depends on what the research is about, but basically there is no, I mean, in the public domain, you can collect. I mean, if you depending on how you are going to collect data, you can go about 10. So that's not a big issue as such. But I would think the major one area where Sri Lankan universities must improve a lot is to invest more on research apparatus, where the laboratory infrastructure, especially in scientific, technical oriented degrees, and access to resources must improve a lot.
Great. Well, Sri Lanka, if you're watching, then there's something to work on. Research is a huge part of a country's development, and I think it's time that Sri Lanka comes to the standard of the international level, because it's 2021. Let's get there, please. Attention to the government of Sri Lanka. All right, so that's great insight, Mr. Seneviratne, as to what goes on.
Something came to my mind. Can I add that as well?
Of course.
No, actually, research topics. Now the industry, the relationship between the industry and the university collaborations is another area which you could improve, because the industry has a lot of problems, and those will be actually those could be converted into research topics very easily. And sometimes certain students have a problem in finding a research topic. So I think that's another area where the universities and the industry could collaborate, especially not only the state sector, even the private sector, where they have a lot of problems, and the university have a lot of candidates who are looking for research problems to solve. So proper networking between these two also would be helpful compared to other developed countries. We could use those models here as well.
Better networking. I think something that is probably organized by the researchers of universities, the professors, the grad students, would probably create something like that. And also putting out there that, there's something, there's a problem, that, there are research questions in the industries, but there's no connection between that. Putting it out there is also creating awareness. So I think people need to speak up, put out your issues as grad students on Facebook, or social media is a thing these days. So get your message out there and make these kind of issues available to the public so they know. And until you told me this, I didn't know about this issue in Sri Lanka. So they need to be mentioned publicly, so the governments and universities are aware of it and they can do something about it. I'm really hoping that the research side of things in Sri Lanka will head in a positive direction in the future. All right. Anything else to add on that, Mr. Seneviratne?
Yeah, because the industry has a lot of data. They have a lot of information, which is very useful to research students. So it's just a matter of, as I said, networking. So one way to go about is to have memorandums of understanding between industry, leading organizations and the university. So where there'll be a very easy, there'll be a path for the students and the industry to work together and to exchange, share data. And the industry would love it. The outcomes will be very beneficial to them. So that is really something that I know a couple of instances where that has happened. Certain institutions have signed MOUs with the departments of universities. Part of the MOU covers the research aspects where they agree to share their data and they agree to allow the research students to, walk in and gather data as they want. So those are very important and those are very helpful.
For sure. I think that would definitely speed up the results that come out of Sri Lanka in terms of different problems. And universities can definitely collaborate on things like, privacy and consent, those kind of things. And, if people don't know, there's a lot out there. You can reach out to even Sri Lankans who are living abroad. And I'm sure you don't have to reach out to other countries. There's people in the country who know how to do that already. So it's a matter of taking action. Now that we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges, personal and country-specific challenges in doing a PhD, let's talk a little bit about the positives. What are the good things or the supports that you've had ever since you've started this PhD?
Well, one of the things that I like very much about my program is my interaction with my supervisor. Because, in my job also, I have a lot of people who are younger to me, working with me together as a team. And my supervisor is also by age very much younger to me. I think he has started his first degree during the time I was doing my master's. So I did my master's also 10 years after I did my first degree. So, but still, he's a great inspiration for me. How he approaches problems and how he he publishes a lot. He's engaged in a lot of research, covering a wide area. So, it's to be inspired by someone younger to you. It's very, it's amazing, And so we have a mutual respect. He also respects me as an experienced industrialist, and he even mentions about me to his first degree students. Right, that I have a PhD candidate and supervising candidate who is 50 plus. So, that's very interesting and it's very inspiring for me. And I think it would have been, he being young and he being exposed to the industry a lot, we research a lot, and we really get on very well. And that is something very interesting and something I like about the program.
Great. That mutual respect and the good relationship with your supervisor goes a long way, doesn't it?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, it can make it or break it, I guess. Any other support that you want to mention? Any thanks, for people who've been on your side through this journey?
Certainly, so my although my work pressure during my job is sometimes gets in the way of the PhD, my immediate team is very helpful. Whenever all the time when we have official meeting or after that, at the end of the meeting, they'll ask, sir, now how is your research going on? So all of them are concerned. And sometimes when I need role plays, When I want to do pilot tests, they do their role plays. In my research, I had to do some certain role plays. So they volunteer as role players. And so they help me a lot. And of course, last but not least, my family, my wife and my children, they are very understanding. I mean, I think that is also very essential when during a PhD program, right? I mean, I often wonder, I mean, for my son and daughter, how they feel having a father, right, who is now almost coming close to retirement, but he's engaged in a research PhD program. So anyway, they all seem to enjoy it. I think that they are very happy and proud about it. So that inspires me also. So those are the good things. So it's basically about the passion. I mean, being passionate about it. Basically, whenever that, sometimes I find when things are very, very tough and when I don't have the time to engage, or sometimes I find, and in my age, sometimes I'm a little absent-minded also, the same energy that I had during my first degree program or the master's is no longer there with me. And sometimes, when I do something, I think that I have done something, there's something pending. And then next day when I open up the computer and I find that I have already done it. So interesting things happen like that also. So that's a good side. So at the end of the day, I enjoy it. So I'm very passionate about it. And so that's the bottom line. I'm enjoying it.
That's great to hear, Mr. Seneviratne. And like you said, family support it's huge. Even a little support, it could be in any form. Even positive words can really mean a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm glad you have that.
Yeah, and I mean, now obviously any family would like you to spend the time with them, and the job takes me away from them. And on a couple of that, if the studies are also taking their time away, it's something for their concern, but they understand. And my wife, she has been a tower of strength to me throughout my academic career. And I knew her before we were married. I mean, when I was doing my first degree, she was very supportive of my academic program. Then during my master's, she was very supportive. And now with my PhD, the support is still there.
And I'm sure you're a great inspiration to them as well, especially the...
Exactly, yeah. Because my wife completed her master's herself about a couple of years ago. And I'm sure me being involved in the academic program inspired her as well.
Yeah.
And my son is also now, he's aspiring to follow a research degree. Hopefully my daughter also might. So yes, I am happy to be an inspiration to others as well.
Let's move on to questions that are related to your research and its significance. So the first question I have is, what do you want to do for the world with your research? I know you already talked a little bit about that at the beginning, but if you were to say it in one sentence, what do you want to do for the world with your research?
Well, in a nutshell, the main aim is to ensure that the academic world is, free of fraudulent practices and malpractices, where a genuine merit system exists. We know in the world, in many other fields, it doesn't exist. But the academics, at least in the the people who are really, there should be a merit basis within the academia. So ensuring that is the ultimate aim.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So when you do technology assisted learning, so the learning part is okay. I mean, you can teach students using technology, but when it comes to assessing them, that's where the challenge is. So many institutions which they use technology for delivery, but they are still reluctant to use technology for assessment. Of course, with the pandemic situation, it changed a little because they didn't have a choice, but it's still a challenge. So that's one area where a lot of contribution is awaited. So that is my area. So I want to strengthen the arm of the academia to ensure that students do not cheat during online assessments, basically.
Yeah, this is actually, like I said, earlier in the discussion, very important, because now we're going to have hybrid models moving forward. I don't think we would completely go back to how things were, because there's a lot of efficiency involved in doing things online. It's good for the students as well.
Yeah.
Maybe students are more tempted to do things, take shortcuts, when there's no way to assess what they're doing. So this kind of thing would be helpful to students as well, overall, and also overall to the society.
Definitely, yes.
Amazing. The next question is, what are some existing gaps in your area of research? So for example, if a student chooses to do a PhD in the same area of research that you're doing your PhD in right now in 2 to 3 years, what is next to be addressed? I know what you're addressing is a huge gap right now. So let's say, you add some literature, you had some great findings to it, comes up with a solution. What else is there that students can tackle if they're doing a PhD or a research project in this area of research?
Yeah, actually, so if I mentioned earlier, the biometric that we are monitoring is what you call keystroke dynamics. It's a very, very wide area. I mean, there are a lot of things you can now track on that. And especially in the developing world, many students, they don't touch type. I mean, very few people touch type in the academia, right? Many in Sri Lanka, many students. We call it the Columbus system. You just type, you just look at the keyboard, then locate and type. So in that scenario, the keystroke dynamics is very fragile. It's not as robust as a person who's typing is sound. So I am working on several aspects on that. But there are many untapped areas, right? Particularly when you are tracking the keystroke dynamics of people who are not keyboard literate. I mean, who are not using touch typing, who just hunt for their keyboard typing. So that's one area that, I mean, there's a lot of other parameters which you can check and you can monitor. So I think a lot of continuation would be there. Frankly, it's a little premature to say where I would stop and where the next person would start. But I think that I'm uncovering quite a lot of parameters, all of which I may not need to complete my work. So those could be a good starting point for future students.
So future PhD students in computer science, if you're thinking of what to do, I don't know my research topics, this might be a good area to look into. You can also get in touch with Mr. Seneviratne if you want to talk a little bit more about it. All right, so now I'm going to ask you a most frequently asked PhD related question. The question is, how do you maintain a balance between life and your PhD? I know you touched on it a little bit because of your work schedule, but tell us, what else do you do to maintain a balance?
Well, as I said earlier, it's basically about being passionate about it. Now, I'm doing it simply because of passion. I mean, it's not going to earn me any mileage in my career. I mean, now I'm almost at the close to retirement. And it's not going to give me any advancement in my professional career, but I could continue as a researcher and I could continue to be a part-time academic. So that passion is there. So basically, as long as you have that passion, research is all about being passionate about it. As long as you are passionate about it, you can always find a way. But if you're doing something mainly simply to acquire a qualification or a couple of letters to the end of your name, maybe the balancing it would be a problem. So I think if my simple advice to anybody who is following a PhD is to be passionate about it.
So basically, you're working and then you're balancing your work life with your passion, which is a PhD. That's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The balance is already there. So our last question is, you have, by the way, given a lot of amazing advice so far throughout our discussion. The last question is, give us one advice to current and future PhD students.
I would say choose your research topic wisely. I mean, it shouldn't just be a vehicle for you to ride on towards your PhD. It should be something that you can actually relate to. It should be something meaningful to you in a wider sense. So choosing your research topic wisely is the key to good research.
Definitely.
I would say, yeah. So spend a lot of time on it and think about it a lot, and just don't jump at something that comes to you. Make sure that it is very close to your heart. And so that I said earlier to be passionate about it, but make sure that you have a topic that you could be passionate about, where you relate to it in so many ways at different levels. In my case, I said now I am very concerned about the academic integrity in the academic world. So my report topic is related to that. So like that, you should be able to connect to it in multiple levels.
Definitely, definitely. And because you will be spending a significant amount of time studying it, studying what else has been done, reading a lot about it.
Yes, exactly.
This is very good advice. I 100% support that. Spend some time, take time to think about what you want to do, for sure. All right, so we have come to the end of all the questions I have for you. Do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Okay. Well, I would say that, when you are young and when you are more energetic, it's always you have stand a better chance of doing a PhD, as you said. But of course, age is not a barrier. I mean, you can do it anytime. But I would advise not to wait for that. I mean, I don't want to be a role model in that regard. It's good if you could start quite early and where you are more energetic and you can, go about it in a more systematic way before various other, things weighs you down. Okay.
All right, Mr. Seneviratne, thank you so much for your time and your valuable feedback that you provided us.
Thank you, Madara. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to join this program. Thank you very much.
And thank you all of you for watching and being here with us until the end. I hope this video was helpful to at least one of you out there. If you have any questions, please feel free to share them with us. Until next time, bye-bye. Take care.